Top 7 True Horror Street Stories. Mid-October, deep in the forests of Oregon, the last rays of sun slipped through the dense trees. Fog clung to the ground like a shroud. That's when she saw him standing motionless between the pines, his cracked face watching her without blinking. Ava, 23, was a nature vlogger, exploring unexplored forest trails for a new series. Confident, calm, with long chestnut hair and a quiet strength, she was used to hiking alone. But this time, she wasn't alone. She was joined by her friends. Cole, 30, a rugged wilderness expert with a protective instinct, and Nora, 28, a sharp-minded photographer with a skeptical view of all things paranormal. The forest was rumored to be cursed stories of people vanishing, strange lights at night, shadows that whispered. They didn't believe it. Not until they camped near the abandoned ranger station, and things began to change. That night, the fire went out by itself. Their equipment malfunctioned. Nora saw a figure behind the tree stall, with a wide smile and glowing red eyes. His skin was dry and cracked like aged bark, the wrinkles forming a twisted mask. He wore black, blending with the night, but his presence sliced through the darkness. No sound, no breath, just watching. Ava was the first he approached. Alone by the creek, she heard whispers in a language she didn't know. She turned, and there he was, inches from her face. His mouth widened, showing needle-like teeth. Cole's sudden arrival broke the moment. The man vanished into mist, but Ava's expression was frozen in shock. As they moved deeper into the woods the next day, signs appeared. Dead animals arranged in unnatural patterns, trees marked with claw-like symbols, Nora's photos erased from her memory card. Tension mounted. No one slept. They felt watched. Ava became quieter, withdrawn, often staring into the trees. That evening, Nora disappeared. They found her hours later, standing motionless in front of an old wooden shack, eyes glazed, whispering the same word over and over him. Cole pulled her back, but she screamed, saying the man had spoken to her, promised her she'd never be alone again. The group's dynamic shifted. Suspicion, fear. Was something inside the forest getting into their minds? Ava began sketching the man in her journal. Each night, the sketches grew more detailed, more violent. Cole, trying to keep them grounded, attempted to lead them out, but the paths had changed. Compasses spun wildly. The forest twisted. They faced him again. In a clearing at dusk, Ava froze. He stood in the middle, hands outstretched. Nora stepped toward him. Cole blocked her path, grabbing Ava and pulling her away. The man didn't chase. He only smiled wider, eyes glowing brighter. The final night, they reached the edge of a cliff. Beyond it, the forest continued, endless. They heard Nora's voice from behind, but she was next to them. Another Nora appeared, face blank. Cole grabbed a flare, lighting it. The figure shrieked and vanished in the shadow. They escaped by dawn, silent, shaken, but not free. Back in the city, Ava tried to forget, but every night at 3:07 a.m., she wakes up. A whisper echoes through her room, the same word Nora repeated. The forest didn't let them go. It followed. Late November, snow had just begun to fall across the Cascade Mountains. The trees were bare, and the sky hung heavy with clouds. In the clearing below, something moved in the mist stall, slow, inhuman. Its face cracked like dry earth. Its smile stretched too wide to be human. Ava hadn't spoken in days. Since they returned from the woods, her nights had been restless. Now, she was back in Oregon, not by choice, but pulled by something she couldn't explain. Cole and Nora joined her, worried but loyal. They were supposed to meet Mason and Harper, two survivalists they'd contacted online for help. The idea was to document the strange phenomena from part 1. But this was no documentary. This was a return to something unfinished. At the foot of the mountain, Mason, 32, calm and methodical, met them with Harper, 27, intuitive, tough, and suspicious of everything. Both had heard the legends. Neither expected the stories to be true. That changed the first night at base camp. The fire cracked but gave no warmth. Every breath turned to frost. Nora spotted footprints circling the tent long, wide, too deep for any animal. They heard whispers again, the same unknown language. Harper dismissed it until she saw Ava drawing in her notebook, again pages of that face, each more disturbing than the last. Mason took first watch. Around 3 a.m., he vanished. Only his jacket remained, torn down the middle, laid gently at the campsite edge. No struggle, no sound, just absence. And near the edge of the tree lay a mark, a symbol etched into the frost, like a twisted eye surrounded by jagged lines. They had to move. The deeper they went, the more the forest turned against them. Trees bent unnaturally. Echoes returned, distorted. Time warped. Their watches desynchronized. Ava grew pale, hearing the voice again, louder this time, like it was speaking directly through the wind. They found Mason the next day, or something that looked like him, standing motionless near a dead stream, his eyes glowing faintly red, face blank, skin unnaturally smooth. He didn't speak, just stared. Cole stepped forward. Mason moved, fast and silent, reaching for Ava. Cole shoved her back and grabbed Mason's wrist cold, like stone. Mason smiled that impossible smile, then disappeared into the trees like vapor. Panic set in. Harper blamed Ava. Nora blamed the forest. Cole tried to keep control, but even he started seeing Thingshi's own reflection moving out of sync in the frozen river. The entity, the man from their last encounter, returned in full, not hidden in shadows, but standing tall in the middle of their path, arms stretched wide, red eyes burning. Ava froze. She wasn't afraid anymore. She walked toward him, slowly, eyes locked. Cole shouted, running to stop her. The man didn't move, just waited. When Cole grabbed Ava's shoulder, the forest screamed. Not a sound, but a feeling pressure on the lungs, heat behind the eyes, a vibration in the bones. The ground split beneath them, roots tangled up like arms, dragging at their feet. Harper pulled Ava back as Cole swung a burning branch toward the man. He vanished again, but the echo of his laugh lingered. They didn't stop, couldn't. They reached a ridge overlooking a dried lake. The place was quiet, too quiet. That's when they saw them dozens of figures, standing still on the far edge. Each had the same face, cracked, grinning, watching. Nora collapsed, whispering the language Ava once heard. Harper held her, shaking, while Ava flipped through her journal finding a new page she hadn't drawn. It was the lake, the figures. The exact moment they were in, Cole snapped her out of it. He pointed to the center of the lake bed, a structure, black stone, pulsing faintly. Ava said it was the origin. That's where the man came from. They descended, slowly, cautiously. At the base, standing before the black stone, the man waited. Not alone. Mason stood beside him, smiling. Then another Harper's face. A mirror of herself. It stepped forward, smiling wider, then vanished. Harper screamed, falling to her knees. Cole pulled her up. They had to leave. The man raised one hand. The air thickened. Time slowed. Then Ava did something no one expected. She stepped forward and whispered something none of them understood. The man flinched. A crack appeared in the stone. Then another. The figures screamed not with sound, but inside their minds. Cole grabbed Ava. They ran. Behind them, the stone collapsed inward. The sky above the lake turned black. As they reached the ridge again, Ava looked back. He was still standing, watching, but cracked, hurt, not gone. They returned to the base camp in silence. Mason was still missing. The others, shaken, but alive. Back in Portland, Ava doesn't draw anymore, but every now and then, she wakes with her hand covered in charcoal, drawings of the lake. The man, the crack in his chest. He wasn't trying to kill them. He was trying to call them home. January snowfall blanketed the outskirts of Glacier National Park. Beneath the white silence, something stirred. A figure with cracked skin, burning red eyes, and that same distorted smile stood at the edge of the frozen lake, waiting. It had been 3 weeks since Ava, Cole, and Harper escaped the lake bed. Mason was still missing. Nora hadn't spoken a word since. Harper insisted they leave the state, but Ava felt pulled again, this time to Montana. She kept waking with symbols, etched in charcoal across her sheets. Cole didn't believe in fate, but even he admitted the pull was real. They were drawn north by something unfinished. The team added someone new, Reese, 31, a quiet, skeptical EMT from Denver with a pragmatic mind and a past he didn't share. Reese joined not for belief, but to protect Ava, who'd been slipping deeper into visions, waking to speak in that same ancient tongue the man had whispered. They set up near Avalanche Creek. The weather was brutal, but it wasn't the cold that haunted them. Every night they heard him. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the faint hum of presence. A pressure on the air. Trees groaned in still wind. And Ava, she started disappearing for hours at a time, only to return confused, lips blue, hands covered in frost. One night, Reese followed her. He found her standing waist deep in an ice-covered stream, staring at the surface. She didn't turn when he called. When he touched her shoulder, her reflection looked up at him, not Ava's reflection. Something else. Something grinning. Back at camp, Cole and Harper argued. Ava wasn't safe, not for herself or for them, but leaving her was unthinkable. They agreed on one thing: they needed answers. So, they went deeper into the forest. They found an abandoned ranger station, buried in snow, half consumed by the trees. Inside, it was intact. Maps on the wall, notes, warnings. A recurring symbol etched across the floorboards, the same one from the stone, and a message scrawled in marker across the wall. He doesn't kill, he collects. They camped inside. That night, Ava screamed, not in fear, but in warning. When they rushed in, they saw him. Standing in the doorway, his head low, back hunched, smile wider than ever. His hands were cracked like bark, but too human. In one, he held Nora. Except Nora had been missing for days. She was smiling too, blank-eyed, silent. Harper moved first, pulling Ava back. Cole grabbed the fire axe but froze. The man tilted his head, not menacing, curious. He stepped forward, placing Nora down gently. She didn't blink, didn't move, just sat, humming that tone. The group fled into the storm. Reese stayed behind, blocking the door. When the others turned back hours later, the station was gone, flattened, like it had never been there. Reese was gone. No body, no blood. Just a single line in the snow written in charcoal. Do not resist what belongs to him. They kept going. Ava became more distant. The man appeared more often on ridges, between trees, behind mirrors. Once, Harper found him, reflected in her own eyes. She stopped speaking after that. Cole began seeing Reese in dreams, not as himself, but twisted smiling, slow moving, whispering the same phrase, "You're next." The climax came when Ava vanished again, this time for 2 full days. Cole and Harper searched nonstop. They found her near a frozen cliff, speaking to the air. The man stood beside her, but this time, he wasn't silent. He turned to Cole and said 3 words in perfect English. She opened it. The air cracked like glass. Snow lifted into spirals. The earth vibrated. Then Ava collapsed. They carried her back. She was cold, but breathing. In her pocket was a shard of black stone, same as the one from the lake, now pulsing faintly. She had broken it, set something loose, something older. In the days after, things changed. The man no longer appeared, only at night. Shadows stretched too far in daylight. Trees whispered back. Strangers in town turned to watch them with blank eyes. Ava remained unconscious, twitching in her sleep. Cole made one final note in his journal. He doesn't want our fear, he wants our silence. And Ava, she might already be his. The 3rd of March, near the abandoned mining town of Sulphur Ridge, Snow thawed, but left the ground soaked and soft. Beneath the mud were bones some animal, some not. The first to find them wasn't a ranger, but the man with the smile. He had returned again, not in dreams, not as shadow, fully visible, walking across roads, standing at the edge of motels, watching from behind curtains with hands pressed against the glass. Cole was the first to see him in daylight. He didn't tell Harper. He only said they had to keep moving. Ava had not spoken since the incident on the cliff. Her eyes opened but saw nothing. Her pulse remained steady, but her skin stayed cold. Harper sat beside her day and night. Cole scavenged for supplies. The local town was near silent stores, abandoned. No children, no sounds. Past 6 p.m. Only one man approached them, a drifter missing 3 fingers, who whispered something they didn't understand before fleeing into the woods. The group took shelter in an old farmhouse, with boarded windows and claw marks across the floor. It was Reese's handwriting that told them what to expect next. Scrawled into the back wall with nails. If she dreams, he walks. If she screams, he feeds. That night, Ava screamed. The house shook. Doors slammed. All 3 woke to find themselves in separate rooms. Cole found Harper chained to the ceiling by something not made of metal. It breathed. She couldn't speak. Her eyes rolled back. He cut the bonds and carried her out. In the hall, the man stood again, his smile gone. This time, his face showed something else: anger. Disappointment. Cole dropped Harper. The hallway bent around them like fabric. Lights flickered without source. Ava stood behind the man, lips moving, eyes jet black. She wasn't possessed. She was becoming something else. She whispered his name. He turned and left. At dawn, Harper refused to speak. Cole carried Ava, now conscious but hollow, back into town. The streets were filled with crows. Every rooftop, every line, silent, motionless. Inside the town church, they found a woman pale, blindfolded, humming the same tune they'd heard in the ranger station. She called herself Morrow, said she'd been waiting, said Ava had broken the seal, and what now walked was not a man, not a spirit, something older. It needed an anchor. Ava was chosen, but it could still be stopped. Morrow took them beneath the church, to a room lined with mirrors. She said they weren't reflections, they were cages, windows into him. Each one showed a different face, a version of the man before he became what he is: a child, a priest, a soldier, a monster. Cole stepped close and saw his own face smiling back. Morrow told them the only way to sever the link was through Ava's choice. She had to reject the bond willingly, but the deeper she went, the less she remained herself. That night, Harper disappeared. No signs of struggle, no noise, just her coat on the bed and her name scratched into the glass. Cole confronted Ava. She smiled. Not her smile, his. The mirrors in the basement cracked. Outside, the sky darkened at noon. Shadows lengthened. People in town stood still as statues, eyes wide, bleeding black from their ears. Cole took Ava to the stream where they first found her speaking to him. He forced her to remember who she was, her sister, her childhood, her mother's lullaby. For a moment, her eyes cleared. Then the man stepped from the trees, calm, measured. He knelt beside Ava, brushed her cheek, and whispered something only she could hear. Ava turned to Cole and screamed. The sky split open. The stream boiled. Cole blacked out. When he awoke, Ava was gone. The town was empty, roads erased. Only the farmhouse remained, crumbling. He found one final note in Harper's handwriting, buried beneath the floorboards. He doesn't follow. He waits. And when we stop moving, he begins again. Cole walked into the woods alone. Behind him, a mirror cracked.